welcome. This is Dr. Flores with Kool Academy, and we are in lesson 9 of our PMP live seminar series, and we are going to get back to actually having the live sessions here soon, but I don't want to skip any lessons while I am traveling on business here, so I will make sure to go through and provide you with the information that you need to keep your studies moving along. We are in scope management. This is a knowledge area, and the process is define scope. So again, let's go ahead and orient ourselves. We are in the planning process group in the knowledge area, scope management, and the name of the process is define scope. Now, those of you who have attended these sessions, you know that you can go back in case you missed one and review any of the lessons. We have them all ready for you, and it's a great way to either go back and pick up the lesson or review. The questions that I use, the topics that I talk about in this training is not isolated. I know that to pass the exam, you have to have a big picture perspective. I'm giving you that now. I write the questions pretty tough, and the idea is for you to have linkages. Remember, and this is a key point, if you're working towards the PMP and you want your educational credits, each one of these lessons you will get a PDU, one PDU from PMI. We are a registered education provider from PMI, so Kool Academy gives you that benefit. For those of you who already have your PMP, you will get a PDU, and you have to get 60 of those, 6-0, over 3 years. So we make it even easier for you by doing that. And of course, once you pass the PMP, anytime you wish to share a topic, talk about your experience, or whatever, anything to help a student pass the PMP, then join us. The sessions are for both the CAPM and PMP because the topics do overlap. Okay, so I did the welcome there. That's the agenda. And now we're going to talk about the presentation pertaining to the topic. I go through some key terms. I've got a couple questions for you. And the Q&A, you just follow up with me and I will respond. I'm very good with email, so I will get back with you. If you need to, we can always talk about on the telephone. We confirm the date for the next meeting, which will be next week, as we always do that on a Monday. And down the road, we might add another date to see if we can accommodate more people. Okay, so we are in defined scope, right? So the definition, defined scope, is the process, which we knew that, the process of developing a detailed description of the project and product. So remember, the scope itself, the scope is the work to be performed. It relates to a detailed, okay, that's key, detailed description of both the project and product. Project scope is what it takes to do the work. Product depends on the product that you're developing. For example, a computer, a bridge, anything that's tangible has specifications. A building must meet certain standards, right? So if you are in a hurricane area or an earthquake area like Japan, let's say, it has to have certain built-in requirements or standards. That is the product scope. Know the difference between the two. I promise you, PMI will take a lot of liberty of using those on the exam, and if you don't know the difference between the two, it's going to trip you up on the exam. The key benefit of defined scope is that it describes the product, service, or result boundaries. So from now on, I want you to associate the word boundaries with scope management. Anytime something like an option comes up with boundaries, you're looking for scope management. Or if boundaries comes up in the question, in the stem of the question, you're looking for something related to scope. The boundaries by which of the requirements collected will be included in and excluded from the project scope. So again, the key benefit of this process is that it describes the product, service, or result boundaries by which of the requirements will be collected, which of the requirements collected will be included and excluded. You know, included and excluded, they're talking about boundaries. This is the same kind of stuff. It's almost a redundancy here. I want you to be ready for this type of question on the exam. Scope is about boundaries. How much work are we going to do? Let me give you an example. I used to work with different clients, and we collected their requirements. We worked on providing a solution for them. It was an IT solution. We had modules. I think we had 10 modules that we provided. The customer would say, oh, I want your reporting module, I want your training module, I want your video module, but I don't want the accounts payable module. So what they wanted is what's included in the work. And what they don't want, in this case, accounts payable, is excluded. So this is the scope, what's included and what is excluded. I'm spending some additional time with the definition and key benefit because it is important for you to know the difference between the two. All right, some key terms. First, product analysis. For projects that have a product as a deliverable, as opposed to a service or result, product analysis can be an effective tool. Okay, so a deliverable can be a product, service, or result, right? A product, service, or result, or service. The service tends to be more intangible, and so is a result. But the product is something tangible. All right, so let me go back. For projects that have a product as a deliverable, as opposed to a service or result, product analysis can be an effective tool. Product analysis includes techniques such as product breakdown, system analysis, requirements analysis, systems engineering, value engineering, and value analysis. So in this case, we're talking about, okay, well, we have a product as a deliverable, something tangible. I've used the building as an example, but it could also be a computer, some kind of tangible device, whatever it might be. Maybe it's some kind of technical equipment that's used in the operating room, in the emergency room, let's say. Well, there has to be a requirements analysis. I'm sure these products or tools that are used in hospitals must meet certain standards. How are you going to create them? How do you validate them? What kind of quality assurance is done? That's product analysis. It has to meet the requirements. Before we send something out to outer space, we must ensure it is working appropriately by using systems engineering. If you want to make a mistake, let's use the Hubble telescope and send it out there without doing all the testing on it that you're supposed to do, because you want to rush it out to outer space. And guess what happened? It took another entire NASA mission to fix the problem at billions of dollars of cost. Because why? We didn't do a good job with requirements analysis, systems engineering, and value analysis, and so on. These types of this description of product analysis refers to a tangible product, not a service or result. As you can see, when I go through these sessions, I'm not just talking to you about a definition. I'm trying to give you as much information to help you on the exam. All right, now, alternatives generation. It's a technique used to develop as many potential options as possible to identify different approaches to execute and perform the work of the projects, such as brainstorming, lateral thinking, and analysis of alternatives. All right, so what does this mean? It means that when we are working on developing a product, service, or result, we need to think about different ways of doing the work. Let's use lateral thinking because this can be on the exam. Lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is a creative way of doing something, thinking outside the box. I really believe that lateral thinking is a question on the exam. So it might just ask you, what is lateral thinking? Well, it relates to alternatives generation. If I'm looking to solve a problem and someone says, well, let's use step A, step B, step C, and then you go, well, wait a second, none of that works because we've tried it before, and someone says, Well, why don't we take it apart and do some reverse engineering or something unique, something that we hadn't thought about. We bring in some creative people and they give us some ideas about how to try it out. Maybe we say, hey, before we do that, why don't we just have the user uh, take hold of it and see what kind of feedback we're getting, and then we'll go back and put it together, build that IT solution or put that product together. If you think about the mobile phones today, I was reading about how that's going to change in the future and become more of a wearable, right? So today we carry the phone and we're used to it. We think it's high-end stuff, and it is. But the future generations may not actually be using phones like that. It might be something of a wearable, like something they put in their glasses or some like Google goggles, that idea. But it's a new way of doing something. It's an alternative to the mobile phone. Right now, this is what we use, but it's not what we're going to use. I think the article that I was reading was, is the iPhone going to be around in 2027 or something like that? So, because there are so many changes, well, who's coming up with these ideas are folks that are using lateral thinking, brainstorming, and analysis of alternatives. An analysis of alternatives is where you put 3, 4, 5 alternatives and you review them independently to see which one is the most viable. But what are we doing? It's called alternatives generation. Okay, acceptance criteria. The first thing I want you to do is associate acceptance criteria with scope management, project scope statement. When I think about acceptance criteria, I think about the project scope statement, because when we give something to the customer, they must accept it, right? They must say, yes, it is what we wanted. Well, let me take a step back. They could say, I'm not going to accept it because it did not meet the acceptance criteria. Let's just say that you create some kind of IT solution for a customer, and when you are done with this, it's some kind of reporting uh, portal or some type of information where they can enter information regarding the number of hours worked, the clients that they are servicing, and so on. And part of this IT solution is for them to run a daily report that is formatted in a certain way, and it turns into or converts into a PDF, and they can send it off to someone, and it's done automatically. It's just an automatic report. Well, everything that I just described is acceptance criteria. When we collected the requirements, the customer said, hey, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, I wanted to do that. So at the end of the work, when we are validating the scope, which happens later, when we are validating the scope, we go, hey, did it do everything the customer wanted? If so, we can check mark that and say it met the acceptance criteria. Okay, I want you to know what that means because it's very critical. I'm spending a lot more time on these terms because they're just used so often on the exam. I hope that makes sense, and if not, go back and review it on your own. Okay, sample question number 1. The community park project is behind schedule, over budget, and conflict has arisen among key stakeholders. The sponsor desires reliable work performance information to help in the decision-making process. A key problem identified by an internal consultant is that the data collected lacks integrity. What is the best step the project team can take to improve the integrity of the data collected? Okay, so you're given a scenario. It's a community park kind of thing. It's over budget, it's behind schedule, and there's conflict. Okay, well, it doesn't sound like too different from most projects. Now we get into the meat of this question. The sponsor desires reliable work performance information. Okay, so reliable work performance information, you now know you're in the executing process group just based on that. Now, the question is not about executing, but I want you to know where you are. You have reliable work performance information to help in the decision-making process. So we have an internal consultant. I don't want that to throw you off because it really doesn't matter whether they're internal, external, or whatever internal, right? It doesn't matter. So what is the best step the project team can take? So you're looking for the best answer. A, redefine the deliverable so that it matches current expectations. Well, that cannot be the answer because you can't just go back and make up stuff and say, oh, well, it didn't work out, so let's kind of make things up along the way and let's change the rules. And as long as it matches current expectations, we're fine. Now, I mean, I guess it sounds good if you haven't studied, but it's definitely the wrong answer. You're basically changing the rules along the way. 2, or B, do nothing. Most projects encounter problems and performance improves as more attention is given to the scope. Well, doing nothing is usually not the answer. And the idea that performance will improve, well, it's not good right now. What's going to tell us that it's going to be better down the road? So I think that's not the right answer. And C, task the scope manager to review any exclusions associated with the project. Now, I put this one in here for you because it's tricky. There is the word exclusions in the PMBOK, and now we have a scope manager. Okay, well, that's kind of quirky because who is a scope manager? I don't even know who that is, but I guess you can have somebody called a scope manager. I don't know, but that's usually the project manager. So again, it's sort of okay because you can go and see what's not included, but does it really solve the problem? I guess that's the way to say it. Does it solve the problem? And the answer is no, because exclusions is one part of the scope. It's not. What about the inclusion? What about what is included? All right, what about D? Review the project scope statement with key stakeholders to ensure data and reporting are accurate. Well, that is the problem. The problem here is that the key stakeholders are not happy, in this case the sponsor, and they want more reliable work information, right? Work performance information. So review the project scope statement with the key stakeholder, who is the sponsor, and this is going to improve the chances of reporting being accurate, and so the key stakeholders are going to get the information that they desire. Now, are we making some assumptions? Yes, but we're looking for the best answer, and I hope that makes sense. It's a tricky one because there's a lot of key complicated terms in here that are there to trick you, I guess. All right, so it's D, review the project scope statement with key stakeholders to ensure data and reporting are accurate. And you're not always going to be able to ensure it, but you're going to improve the chances. And this is the best answer based on what we have here. So to get this question right from the explanation, one must focus on the problem at hand. In this case, the data that lacks integrity, which we know that. Therefore, the best solution is to work with key stakeholders to ensure the data collected process is reliable. Okay, so this, based on the 4 options, this is the best one. The other ones were, okay, I guess. Let's go back to the one here. Task the scope manager to review any exclusions associated with the project. Okay, that has an element of truth or accuracy, but it's not the best answer. It's a right answer. You're looking for the best answer, and that is D delta. All right, question number 2. The project charter and project scope statement are sometimes perceived to be similar in the elements they contain. Which of the following best describes the difference between these 2 documents? Okay, so you're being asked to know the difference between the project charter and the project scope statement. A, the project charter contains high-level information, while the project scope statement contains a detailed description of the scope elements. Sounds pretty accurate because the project charter does contain high-level information, high-level risks, high-level budget, high-level schedule, high-level whatever. Everything's high level at this point because we are in the initiating process group. Now, this project scope statement is in the planning process group and therefore detailed description of the scope elements. Sounds pretty good, so let's keep that one for now. B, the project charter provides a clear overview of the project while the scope statement contains a general description of the scope elements. Well, B could partly be right. The project charter does provide a general overview. I don't like the wording, but okay, we could use that. The second part, though, while the project scope statement contains a general description of the scope elements, is incorrect. It is not a general description. It is a detailed, because we are in planning. Know the difference. Initiating high level, in planning detailed description. B is gone because of that. This is a very common way for exams to be written. Part of the answer is correct and part is incorrect. Therefore, if part is incorrect, all of it is incorrect. So B is gone. C, the project charter defines the scope of the project while the scope statement contains a high-level perspective of product and project deliverables. Well, The project charter defines the scope of the project. That's a leap. It's a high-level perspective. That part is wrong. It's just not right. While the scope statement contains a high-level perspective, no, we already said it contains a detailed perspective. So both elements are wrong, in that question, in that option. So that C, charter is gone. Now D, the project charter and project scope statement are similar and can be used interchangeably. Obviously, the distractor is that one. The charter and scope statement are not interchangeable. They are separate documents. They are perceived to have some redundancy. Okay, maybe like the scope is described here and the scope is described in the project scope statement as it is in the charter. But they are separate documents. Further, the project charter 4.1 is created in initiating. The scope statement is in the planning process group. These are two different sections or two different phases in the project management framework or life cycle. All right, so I hope that made sense. The answer is A, the project charter contains high-level information, while the project scope statement contains a detailed description of the scope elements. This question is tough because the options are wordy, right? I made them tough and made one part correct, the other part not correct. Please make sure and focus on each of the documents. I mean, the project charter is a document. The scope statement is a document. Again, another key item there. These are documents. They are not plans. And in which process group they are created. The general idea is that high-level work takes place in the initiating process group, project charter, and detailed work is done in the planning process group, which is a project scope statement. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. I know that's kind of tough, right? But I hope you see what I'm trying to share with you there. All right, if you have questions or comments, you're always welcome to send those over to me. I will review them quickly, get back with you, and we can resolve any issues. I hope you're passing along this information to people. Send them the link. Do anything you want to get them engaged, because these questions I know will help you. These topics that I'm picking here, I'm going to go through all the topics, okay? All 47 of the current PMBOK, and the next version is PMBOK 6. We're going to go through 49. So I'm just going to keep going every week. And before you know it, you're going to have so much content. You're going to say, what? I've got everything I need to pass the exam, or at least a good piece of what you need to pass the exam. Know that we also have a comprehensive training program, right? So what I'm doing right here through our PMP Pass Suite, which is very affordable. You can get the entire series, more than 50 hours of learning, just kind of like what I'm doing right now. That's available to you at a reasonable cost. And you also get 250 questions that I narrate now, okay? So a lot of questions that I do the same thing and to discuss different ways to perform and to do well on those questions. Okay, I will see you on the next date. I will make sure we're going to be doing Create WBS, Create Work Breakdown Structure, which is 5.4. And I look forward to seeing you in a future live seminar. Talk to you later. Bye now.